Hi, this is Lynn with Blue Night Rubber Stamps, and this weekend I was making stamps and got inspired to see if I could make 4 seasons out of our mountain scene. So this is the cover picture, and so this is my attempt. So this is spring, summer, fall, and winter. And so I did use a few other sets to create the leaves in the trees, and then of course the animals. And I think we're going to go ahead and put a bird in the sky of the one we're going to do today. So I'm going to put this aside. Okay, and I pre-colored a little bit of this just to make it go by quickly. So I stamped it, and I like to, if I'm going to use colored pencil, do that first because it resists the pan pastels a little bit, and you don't have to be as careful when you color. So I did the green since it covers so much of a large portion, but I did want to show you that if we use a little bit of colorless blender, it really makes everything look smoother. So I thought that would be a good thing for you to see. And that just blends everything together. Okay, so now we're going to use a little bit of brown on the top, mixed with the cream. I kind of like that it's not too dark. And it's actually the burnt sienna tint. I want to really make sure I don't have any white spots left. That's kind of the important part. I'm going to turn this upside down or sideways to make that a little easier for me to color. Okay, and that is one of the best things about pan pastels is it is erasable. And then, you know, I can go a little bit right into the green because nature just kind of really does meld things together a little bit. All right, so I'm going to do the water, and that'll be very quick because, again, like I said, I already did the rocks, and you can see I go right over them, and it's not too bad. It doesn't really take the blue. The rocks don't take on the blue, so that's good. Now I am using an oversized piece of paper. That also makes it a little easier for when I stamp. I have a place to put my my magnets, but also when you put your paper in the corner, you can't get your stamp quite all the way in the corner, so that gives you a little room to just trim when you're finished. So I used the turquoise, and then I'm going to use that phthalo blue just like along the rocks, so it looks like it's a little darker there. And just blended it together. So. All right, so now it's time to make it look like fall, and this is kind of the fun part. So I actually used, this comes with 3 stamps. So it comes with the silhouette grazing horse, but then it comes with leaves that you can just stamp all over the tree. And then it also comes with a little bunch of leaves. And this is nice for if I want to make the leaves different colors. So I'm going to start with mustard because that's the lightest. And I'm just going to stamp all over the tree. I do prefer to use Tim Holtz Distressed Ink as opposed to the Oxide ink. It just looks better on the trees. I think it doesn't tend to just clump up. So this is the Fossilized Amber. It's a little bit darker and just gives a richer color. And then I like to put some orange in there, and this one is Carved Pumpkin. And I'm really doing this kind of randomly. It's not a real difficult thing. Now I do want to put some leaves on the ground. So, and yes, I did forget to clean my stamp off. I should have cleaned that off. And I'm going to put a little bit of brown in there because once they fall on the ground, they get brown, right? So when I'm using pan pastels, I could use the pan pastels for the sky as well, but the more I've done this, the more I realize I really like using ink. One of the reasons is if you happen to smudge after you've inked it up, but you're smudging the pan pastels a little, you can erase it right off of the ink. The ink doesn't erase. So the skies are kind of neat to do in ink, and they're just easy enough to do that. So, and I like the little clouds the best, so we only have a little patch of sky. I'm gonna just tap that off and try to get an even looking sky, and you pull it up, and then you're gonna shift again. So now the important thing is you don't want a whole lot of sky. You want a nice puffy cloud, so you don't want to go all the way up, just along the edge. And then, because the blue is so light, you don't have to be too worried. I don't usually mask to put my sky in. I just do a little bit above the ground. So in this case, it's the mountains. So there you go. I've got my clouds, got my mountains. This is a good time to look back and say, I'd like it to blend a little bit more. So I'm just going to go over it again. And I'm not worried too much about the green going in the brown, because to me, it just looks like, you know, the moss might be climbing up on the rocks a little bit. Now I purposely went a little light in here because I knew my leaves would be going in on top of that, on top of the tree. All right, well, I think it looks pretty good. So it's time to go ahead and do the double stamping. And I put my bird in here. And remember, with birds, you really don't want to push down hard. And again, I can, since my paper's oversized, I've got a little bit of room for my magnets. All right, so I'm going to be pushing down on the trees, but not the bird, because I don't want him to get all blobby. show up. So we're going to put a little oomph behind this. All right, well, that looks good. I'm going to take the mountain off so my bird can hit a little better. There you go. And like I said, I don't want to push him too hard. I think that looks pretty good. So now I can actually pick the animal I want to put on there. And so this is our mama bear and friends. And I have to say, out of all of them, I like the bears the best. So I think we'll go ahead and, well, we'll do the wolf like I did with the other one. So I can loosely line him up, and then I want to stamp and see where he's at, and see if he's straight, see if I like him in that position. Oh, this goes up higher. I like him there. He looks straight. That looks fantastic. So now this is going to take a few times because I don't want that line to show through the wolf. So I'm going to stamp him nice and black. I think that looks great. All right. So now this is the fall card. And I think that looks very autumnish. And I'll show you all the other ones one more time. So I don't have enough colors in my distress ink, so I did use the oxide inks, and you can see how they kind of just started blending together. And the way the trees are in Maryland right now, they are very heavy with blossom, so I decided that looked still kind of nice. So for spring, I went with the bright yellow green pan pastel to make it look like the grass is new and fresh. And then I used violet and a pink of the distressed oxide inks for the tree. And then I used a couple different kinds of greens of distressed ink. I believe it was the peeled paint and the mowed lawn for the spring. And I darkened the grass, but I still wanted some of that yellow green in there to make it look like it wasn't too old. So in fall, I went just with the straight green that's in the pan pastel palette. And then for winter, that's a super, super easy one because you don't have to color the ground except putting a little bit of blue in the crevices to make it look like snow. And then to make it look a little bit more like ice, I actually did white first. And then I did the real light turquoise on top of it, and that blended right on the paper. And then I used the magenta and the turquoise for the sky, and they blended together. I used the blender on that to make that blend real nice too. So anyway, I'm pretty pleased with my 4 seasons. I hope you enjoyed this, and you can try making a lot of if trees, you have any trees, even if they're not ours, look like the 4 seasons. If you have anything that looks like leaves, we have 2 sets that come with the little sets of leaves. One is the silhouette grazing horse, and the other is the path to the barn has a couple little clumps of leaves. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Happy stamping!